make a line that goes through those. We could study statistics. Statistics would teach us about a regression line, and it's going to make a line that goes through those points with the least error. I'll talk about regressions later. I'm not going to belabor you with statistics, but just sort of imagine you have a mathematical way to make a line going through that's connecting those points, that's minimizing the error of the points being away from the line. So now we have a demand curve that we've estimated from going out and gathering real-world data. We have a data table up here that would be longer, and we could estimate a demand curve, something that environmental economics would do, but with a lot of noise because there's human beings and there's measurement in it. But basically, we're going to get to this point where we're going to say there is a demand curve. And as I said in this class, it's almost always going to be a straight line, not an actual curve. We can give it to you in a homework as Q as a function of P. Well, I said D here. I had it written down at the top, huh? So we have a mathematical so we'll have in any line we're going to have a slope, the rise over the run, right? We're going to have the slope. We're going to have an intercept over here. And so we're going to have a mathematical representation of that line, which we can do a whole bunch of things with. We can solve it for an equilibrium. We can solve it for a total dollar value. We can solve for different areas under this curve. Later, when we get to the environmental economics part, we're also going to call this the willingness to pay curve. But we're going to just be familiar with what it's like to draw a slope and solve for different points and solve for different triangles under this line. OK, so I need to get what's happening is my mouse is getting stuck on the other screen. All right. Here we go. So on the other side of things, we have the people selling the donuts or providing the environmental services. We have what we're going to call a supply curve. Right? So we're going to have a quantity that's going to be supplied for each price. And we can solve for this side. And then we'll have the inverse supply, where there's a price that corresponds to each quantity. This should be a little inverse here. We're going to promptly forget about the inverse, but it's the first day, so I need to say it. So we can think about the prices. If the price is really low, we're going to not put too many donuts out because we're not going to make a lot of money back. If the price was really high, we'll put a lot of donuts out because donuts are a leader, and we're going to make a bunch of money off selling donuts. So we can think about if the price is really low, 30 cents, we're only going to put a few donuts out. If people start buying a lot of donuts, well, we'll put more out because we can make more money off it. So we're going to have an upward sloping curve here. And here I'm just doing it chunky to think about how many people are going to supply how many donuts. The higher the price is, there's some price at which, yeah, sure, I will sell as many donuts as you like if you're going to pay me 90 cents a donut. But at 30 cents a donut, barely even covering the cost of my time to make the donuts, I'm only going to put a few out there. I didn't label my graph here. So again, price, dollars per unit, and number of units here. And importantly, we have a supply curve that's sloping upward, a demand curve that's sloping downwards. And it was 8 o'clock class. Yeah. So we can have our price here, our quantity here, and we had a demand curve, and we had a supply curve that are each relating a set of quantities to a set of prices. And importantly, we think of price as a signal from the buyer to the seller. The buyer is saying how much is it worth to them, where are they going to go, how much do they want, and the price from the seller is a signal of how much they're willing to supply. And we have a free market. They're signaling to each other. They're going to come to an equilibrium where the quantity supplied equals the quantity demanded. So there's going to be some magic solution that solves these two equations. We'll set the price equal. Right? We have two equations that we could solve for P. So we can solve for P supply and equal to P demanded at this equilibrium price. Sometimes we call it P star, because that's star is the way we do equilibrium. And we'll have a Q star. We'll have a price where the supplier is willing to produce and sell a certain amount. That's exactly what the consumers want to buy at that price. We call it market clearing. We call it equilibrium. And we have a whole bunch of reasons that I won't be able to get to in the class that we think this is the most efficient point. A lot of things will happen in this class. We'll all sort of assert things as facts that if you were in, well, when you get to Econ 100 or a higher level class, you can prove them sort of as proofs. But in this class, I'll be more saying, like, this is a fact, this is how we learn it, and not doing the proof here. So we have supply and demand in a market equilibrium of a market clearing price and a quantity where the quantity produced is equal to the quantity supplied. So sometimes it helps to think about this. I'm going to draw it one more time. So we got our price here, downward sloping demand. Oops, that's a little too steep. We have upward sloping supply. Uh-oh. Jeez. All right. There's too many buttons going on. So we can think about equilibrium a little bit. So we can look at some other points on the graph to think about how we get to equilibrium or what's going on if we're not at equilibrium. So suppose we're at a point over here. The consumers are willing to buy at 30 cents per donut. They're willing to buy 100 donuts. But at 30 cents, the suppliers are only wanting to put out 30 donuts. So we could call this here a shortage. There's not enough donuts. There's a lot more donuts being demanded. So by the time you get in there at 7:30 in the morning, all the donuts are going to be eaten, right? They're going to be gobbled up early. There's going to be a shortage. And when there's a shortage, somebody will be like, well, I would have paid 50 cents for that donut. Tomorrow, so there's incentive for the price to sort of nudge up when there's a shortage. They ran out of donuts early. We could also look at it up here. So if at 60 cents, they're baking 80 donuts, but at 60 cents, people are only buying 35 donuts. So at the end of the day, there's excess. There's donuts left on the table. And if there's an excess, then the person's putting out the donuts and saying, I'm going to bake less donuts. I'm going to put less out. I'm going to move back this way. And maybe the person buying it's going to be like, wow, I paid 60 cents and there was all those ones left over. I should look around. Maybe I get it cheaper. So there's forces that are pushing us back towards this equilibrium point where supply equals demand. If we have too many donuts, the price is going to start going down. If we have too few donuts, the price is going to start going up. And both are going to going to have signals along the supply and demand curve that is going to get us to this magic sweet spot 45-cent price where supply and demand are equal. All right, I think that is it for the. I'm going to do one more and then switch back to PowerPoint. All right, so we have demand again. Maybe I should just switch back to PowerPoint. I don't know what's worse, boring PowerPoint or my bad handwriting. Boring PowerPoint's worse? All right, you're stuck in my bad handwriting then. So we have this demand curve. We should always label it, which is dollars per Q, and then Q. So we could say that price is a, why does it do that? Anybody is like really tech savvy with the tablet and wants to help me figure out how to be a good screen capture person. I would love advice. So right now, so we started with quantity is a function of price. What we can add to this model is the concept of income. So the quantity that any consumer is going to buy or demand is, we can add in income. And in the donut example, we're going to call income Y. So we could say quantity demanded is a function of the price of donuts and how much money I got in my pocket. Maybe I only have money for the coffee. Maybe I got a little extra money that I can add a donut in. So how much money is in my pocket is going to affect how many I'm going to demand. All right. So we could have different demand curves with different levels of income. So we would assume that if I had a little extra money in my pocket, or what is the little card that you have when you live in the dorms and there's a little card? The Cal card or whatever? What's that? I have a little extra balance on my Cal 1 card. Today I'm going to go for the donut. So we would have a higher demand curve. And we're going to talk a whole lot about it's just introducing the idea of a shift in the demand curve. This is the day when my Cal 1 card was exactly on balance, but somebody took me out to dinner all weekend or something, and I had extra balance that next Monday on my Cal 1 card. I could afford the donut. The whole demand curve, the number of donuts demanded at any price, is shifted out. So this is with a higher Y than here. And there's two terms. You could also say this demand shift, we're going to call it for a normal good. It's a really boring word, but it is an economics term. A normal good is a good that as income increases, you consume more of it. You demand more of it. There's another kind of good that as your income increases, the demand curve is going to shift in. And this we're going to call an inferior good. The wealthier you are. So anybody want to try with an example of an inferior good? Income increases, you consume less. Well, food stamps are like money, so that's a little tough. You could say the donut versus the croissant. I have more money, I don't need the donut. Today I'm going for the chocolate croissant. No, maybe not. Maybe that's me. Somebody, what do you consume less of? The classic one that many people would say in college is ramen noodles, right? Ramen noodles is when you're just in the back of the cupboard. That's the inferior good. I really love ramen now that ramen is in and you can get a really good bowl of ramen, so I don't want to diss on ramen, but macaroni and cheese or something. Anybody else? Inferior goods? Or here, how about the drip coffee versus the latte? I got extra money on my Cal 1 card. My normal good is my latte, and my inferior good is my drip coffee. I don't know. You could say that there's different types of goods that would have different types of shifts as income shifts. And this comes in a general sense. I think we're nearing the end here, but let me switch back to PowerPoint. This is where I need to be able to move quickly between programs. We had a demand function that we went through. We had price on vertical axis, quantity on horizontal axis. We had inverse demand. We went through that. Another one that we could have talked about is complements versus substitutes. So one other thing that we can vary is the price of a related second good. The price of the croissant affecting the price of the donut. If the price of the second good increases and the demand for the good that we're studying shifts out, people are coming for the next class? Oh, all right. 9:30 to 11. All right, so just quickly, complements and substitutes. And I'll go back over this again, but if the price of the second good shifts out and we can substitute between the two goods, then if the price of the other good increases and I increase more of this good number one, then they would be substitutes. If the price of the other good goes up and I decrease less, then they're called complements because I'm consuming them together, bundled together. So if we want to do chocolate croissants, the price of chocolate croissants goes up, I'm going to substitute into donuts. So if they're substitute goods, as the price of croissant goes up, I'm actually eating more donuts because I'm substituting out of croissants into donuts. If it's coffee that goes with my donut, then as the price of coffee goes up, I'm actually just going to go to the cafe less, and they're complementary goods. The donut is just an ancillary thing that I get while I'm getting my coffee, so if they're complements, I'm going to actually buy less donuts as the price of coffee goes up. And I think we can take a break there, and start again next time. We'll keep doing supply and demand, and get into some more different, trying to do real-life examples.